Hello, all you freedom-loving people. Not everyone caught the subtle hints given by President Trump and Scott Bessent, but for those who were listening, they may have already made a lot of money. Okay, let's get into it. Yesterday, we mentioned that stocks surged immediately after President Trump announced the 90-day tariff suspension for the 75 countries that did not retaliate against the U.S. This was one of the biggest stock gains since World War II. The S&P 500 soared 9.5%, and the Dow Jones Industrial Average gained nearly 3,000 points. Those are the biggest gains in 5 years, and the Nasdaq Composite jumped 12.2%, which was its largest one-day jump in decades. The stocks that were hardest hit by the tariff war led the gains. Apple rose 11%, Nvidia surged 13%, Walmart gained 9.7%, and Tesla shares rose more than 19%. The Nikkei index also rose more than 7%, while Taiwan, Korea, and Australia rose in tandem. As President Trump greeted lawmakers at a NASCAR event on the south lawn of the White House on Wednesday afternoon, Republican Senator John Barrasso approached the president and they spoke excitedly about the stock market rise.
You got the market seeing your brilliance.
Yeah, that's up almost 7 points. 2,500 points. Nobody's ever heard of it. It's got to be a record.
Amazing. Yeah. You make an announcement the next time. Yes, sir. Smart.
Before President Trump's announcement of the halt in tariffs, the stock market had continued its downward trend of the previous days. After the opening bell on Wednesday, President Trump posted on Truth Social, "Be cool, everything is going to work out well. The U.S. will be bigger and better than ever before." And after a few minutes, he wrote, "This is a great time to buy." The public often complains that certain legislators take advantage of inside information to obtain knowledge of the government's policies in advance so that they can gain benefits in the stock market. This time, President Trump hinted that he would adjust the policies to salvage the stock market, and I know that some people got the message and seized the opportunity. Also, gold prices have jumped back and forth from drastic drops to super surges in recent days. From April 3rd, the price of gold started to plummet. This reduced the 19% increase in the first quarter of the year to just a quarter. But just when the market was pessimistic on April 8th, gold prices suddenly rebounded 0.87% in the Asian stock market morning trading. And yesterday, international gold prices soared. At one point, spot gold topped $3,095. It rose 3.75%, which was the biggest intraday gain since 2020. Today, spot gold broke through the $3,100 per ounce mark, and as of press time, spot gold was at $3,125 per ounce. On Thursday, the White House confirmed that the tariffs on Chinese goods have risen to 145%, factoring in the earlier 20% tariff that was imposed in connection with fentanyl trafficking. The new tariff rate on Chinese products now totals 145%, not 125%. The executive order signed by President Trump stated that the reciprocal tariff rate increased overnight from 84% to 125%, which excludes the 20% fentanyl tariff. And on Wednesday, President Trump explained that he made the decision that he did about tariffs because people were jumping out of line, a little bit afraid, but tariffs are still the right way to go.
Thinking about why you decided to put a 90-day pause.
Well, I thought that people were jumping a little bit out of line. They were getting yippy, you know? They were getting a little bit yippy, a little bit afraid, unlike these champions. Because we have a big job to do. No other president would have done what I did. No other president. I know the presidents, they wouldn't have done it. And it had to be done. What was happening to us on trade, not only with, you know, if you look at it, not only with China, but China was by far the biggest abuser in history, and others also, but somebody had to do it. They had to stop because it was not sustainable.
President Trump also said that he had been monitoring the bond market and that people were getting a little queasy as bond prices had fallen and interest rates had increased. He said, "The bond market is very tricky. I was watching, but if you look at it now, it's beautiful." So when did President Trump make the decision? He had been thinking about the tariff pause over the past few days. He said, But it came together fairly early this morning. I'm assuming that's when he posted those two Truth Social posts. U.S. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent put President Trump's decision in a different light. He seemed to imply that this was a predetermined plan.
We saw the successful negotiating strategy that President Trump implemented a week ago today. It has brought more than 75 countries forward to negotiate. It took great courage for him to stay the course until this moment. And what we have ended up with here, as I told everyone a week ago, they are in this very spot, do not retaliate and you will be rewarded. So every country in the world who wants to come and negotiate, we are willing to hear you. We're going to go down to a 10% baseline tariff for them, and China will be raised to 125 due to their insistence on escalation.
President Trump retweeted the video, seemingly endorsing Scott Bessent's explanation. Bessent made it clear that this was a strategy that was set in motion over the weekend.
And all this was driven by the president's strategy. He and I had a long talk on Sunday, and this was his strategy all along. And that, you might even say that he goaded China into a bad position. They responded. They have shown themselves to the world to be the bad actors. And we are willing to cooperate with our allies and with our trading partners who did not retaliate. It wasn't a hard message. Don't retaliate. Things will turn out well.
So does what Bessent said contradict what President Trump said? Actually, there's no contradiction. Each of them told part of the truth. All we have to do is put their statements together to get the general picture. As we've said before, President Trump's tariff policy is primarily aimed at the Chinese Communist Party. One of the reasons for the global tariff increase is to block the CCP's escape route. The Trump team also expected retaliation from the Chinese Communist Party. After all, that's the only way it knows.
And as I've repeatedly said, and President Trump has been saying it for years, China is the most imbalanced economy in the history of the modern world, and they are the biggest source of the U.S. trade problems. And indeed, they are problems for the rest of the world, because what we've seen is that as the U.S. announced the tariff wall last week, many of those goods have already started flooding into Europe.
So as you see it now,
President Trump's son, Donald Trump Jr., also told the world in advance not to retaliate. He said that the first country to come to negotiate would be rewarded, and the last to come would suffer the most. The situation is exactly as the White House predicted. The pause of reciprocal tariffs for other countries was a step in the plan. But President Trump decided on Wednesday morning when to announce the decision. You may have seen many reports in the establishment media that President Trump walked back because of pressure from the falling stock market. But White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt said that the news media clearly failed to see what President Trump is doing here, and Bessent said that the negotiations with individual countries would be bespoke. That is why it will take 90 days to finish the task.
Because of the large number of inbounds, we've had more than 75 countries contact us, and I imagine after today there will be more. So it is just a processing problem. Each one of these solutions is going to be bespoke. It is going to take some time, and President Trump wants to be personally involved. So that's why we're getting the 90-day pause.
In response to the Trump administration's latest measures, the European Union said on Thursday that it will pause its countermeasures against U.S. steel and aluminum tariffs for 90 days. In a statement, European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen said, "We took note of the announcement by President Trump. We want to give negotiations a chance. China will realize that the days of ripping off the USA and other countries is no longer sustainable or acceptable." So now that President Trump's plan is being revealed, it appears that the world leaders have a better understanding of the underlying problem of the CCP and the unfolding Trump solution. The series of President Trump's policies are not viewed the same by Wall Street and corporations, and this is also true for the Trump team. President Trump went through weeks of discussions within the White House before officially announcing the new tariff proposal, and reportedly there were disputes between Elon Musk and President Trump's trade advisor Peter Navarro. President Trump's team members were divided into two factions on the tariff issue. The hardliners were represented by Navarro. He is a strong advocate of a 25% tariff on all imports and so-called reciprocity proposals based on trade deficits. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent was conservative in the internal discussions. He believed that tariffs should be used as a negotiating tool in order to avoid market shocks. Trade Representative Jamieson Greer and National Economic Council Director Kevin Hassett also sided with moderates favoring targeted graduated tariffs. The version of the policy that finally surfaced after weeks of internal discussions was closest to the advocacy of Navarro. The situation was deeply disturbing to many on Wall Street and to the U.S. business community, but Navarro says that this is just the beginning. Even so, all this talk about raising tariffs has brought tensions around the world to a breaking point. Elon Musk apparently doesn't like tariffs. That's why he said he hoped the EU and the US could negotiate a solution with zero tariffs. Navarro said in a CNBC interview on Monday that Musk, the CEO and founder of Tesla, is a car assembler rather than a car manufacturer. He noted that some parts of Tesla cars are sourced from different Asian countries. He also said that Elon Musk doesn't understand the tactics used by some countries to commit tariff fraud. Musk hit back on social media on Tuesday. He said that his products are the most American-made cars. This is also true. Tesla has large factories in California and Texas that produce all vehicles sold within the United States. Tesla uses 60 to 75% US-made parts depending on the model, and most of the remaining parts come from Mexico. By contrast, Stellantis, GM, and other large car manufacturers rely on imports for over 40% of the vehicles sold in the US. But Navarro was not happy with the details of the internal discussion coming to light on social media, so he stated, "What happens in the Oval Office, let it stay there." White House Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt has downplayed the fact that it's normal to argue, and doesn't the media love to see fights? It gives them something interesting to talk about.
Just a quick follow-up. There's been some public sparring between Elon Musk and the president's trade advisor, Peter Navarro, on some of these tariffs. Musk actually referred to Navarro today as being, quote, dumber than a sack of bricks. Are you at all, or is the administration, the president, all concerned that this is maybe impacting the public's understanding of these tariffs? It might be messing with the message on it?
No, look, these are obviously two individuals who have very different views on trade and on tariffs. Boys will be boys, and we will let their public sparring continue. And you guys should all be very grateful that we have the most transparent administration in history. And I think it also speaks to the president's willingness to hear from all sides, that he has people at the highest levels of this government in this White House who have very diverse opinions on very diverse issues, but the president takes all opinions in mind, and then he makes the best decision based on the best interests of the American public.
Of course, with President Trump now showing his cards, Navarro and Musk should be satisfied. The White House doesn't really care if the media reports on their internal disputes, but the White House will not tolerate a biased, one-sided press. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. posted on social media last November that President Trump would push to remove fluoride from drinking water when he takes office. This is because fluoride is an industrial waste product that has been linked to arthritis, broken bones, bone cancer, reduced IQ, neurodevelopmental disorders, and thyroid disease. Since then, the New York Times has published a number of reports stating that the proposal has raised concerns among public health experts, and it could overturn the important public health measures of adding fluoride to water. Fluoride is added to drinking water to reduce the risk of tooth decay. However, opponents argue that it is a form of group medication without consent. The White House recently issued a statement condemning the New York Times for deliberately smearing the Trump administration. The statement says, the New York Times story on Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr.'s review of fluoride recommendations is another thinly veiled attempt to falsely portray the Trump administration as anti-science and anti-health, a characterization that couldn't be further from the truth. In January, the New York Times itself reported that fluoride may be linked to lower IQ scores in children. So why did the Times not note its own prior reporting in its article on Secretary Kennedy? The New York Times is clearly trying to portray the Trump administration as anti-science and anti-health. In fact, there are different views on this issue in the scientific community. The White House statement stated, most industrialized nations, including much of Europe, do not add fluoride to their water, and it has had no discernible detriment on dental health. The statement also stated the following points. 1. The Center for Disease Control and Prevention now concedes that fluoride's predominant dental benefit comes from topical contact with the outside of teeth, not ingestion, making it unnecessary to ingest fluoride. 2. In August of 2024, the Department of Health and Human Services National Toxicity Program concluded that with moderate confidence, fluoride in water at just 1.5 milligrams per liter is consistently associated with lower IQ in children. Number 3, recent studies of CDC's National Health and Nutrition Examination Survey have found significant associations between low levels of fluoride and various indicators of chronic disease, including reduced testosterone levels in boys, increased inflammation, altered kidney and liver function, and increased sleep problems. And at a cabinet meeting today, RFK Jr. said that the HHS will have an answer by September as to what is causing the childhood autism epidemic.
We have now, the autism rates have gone from now most recent numbers we think are going to be about 1 in 31, 1 in 12, so they're going up again. From 1 in 10,000 when I was a kid. And we are going, at your direction, we are going to know by September. We've launched a massive testing and research effort that's going to involve hundreds of scientists from around the world. By September, we will know what has caused the autism epidemic, and we'll be able to eliminate those exposures.
So big. Think of that. So it was 1 in 10,000 children had autism, and now it's 1 in 31. Not 31,000, 31. That's a horrible statistic, isn't it? And there's got to be something artificial out there that's doing this. So you think you're going to have a pretty good idea, huh?
We will know by September.
There will be no bigger news conference than that. So that's it. If you can come up with that answer where you stop taking something, you stop eating something, or maybe it's a shot, but something's causing it. It can't be from 10,000 to. Can you imagine that, Marco? That's a big number. Thank you very much. You're doing great. Thank you, Bobby.
Health Secretary Robert F. Kennedy Jr. is moving forward with his plan to remove dyes from foods. Recently, RFK disclosed more details of a meeting that he had with food company executives on March 10th. The meeting involved executives from Kraft Heinz, General Mills, Tyson Foods, Kellogg's, Smucker's, and PepsiCo. The Consumer Brands Association, which is a trade group representing PepsiCo and other food companies, also participated in the meeting. On Wednesday, RFK said that he had given the food companies 2 years to remove Red 40 and other artificial dyes from their products. In an interview with CBS, RFK said, it's going to take us a while. For example, the CEO of Pepsi, which owns Doritos, said that consumers like them to be very red, and we have not yet found a vegetable dye that we can match, but we're going to do it. So RFK said they all have to be out within 2 years. RFK also explained that the dyes are clearly associated with a grim inventory of diseases, including cancers and behavioral disease and neurological disease like ADHD, and it's very, very well documented. And in many cases, the same products in this country have those dyes, and then they use vegetable dyes in Canada, Mexico, and Europe. The California Environmental Protection Agency's Office of Environmental Health Hazard Assessment published a report in 2021 and addressed the same issue. In the report, the agency analyzed a research that linked the synthetic food dyes to various neurobehavioral problems such as hyperactivity and other neurobehavioral effects in children. And that's a wrap for this episode. Thank you so much for your support of Front Page. Please remember that every like, comment, and share helps more people to see the truth. If you haven't already, please subscribe. And if you have already subscribed, we thank you, but please double check to make sure that you're still subscribed, because some of our audience have reported that they're somehow unsubscribed without their knowledge. We've also heard that some of you don't get notifications of our videos anymore on YouTube. So when you do subscribe on YouTube, please make sure to tap the notification bell as well. Okay, this is our show for today. Thank you so much for tuning in. If you like what you heard today, please don't forget to like this video and share it with your friends and family, because everybody deserves to know the truth.